Hey, Brian Parker, attorney Brian Parker, giving you 30 years of my experience in hopefully 30 minutes. And this new podcast is what I like to title My Top 10 Judge Tips. So this would be for someone new to litigation, either an attorney or, as we say, a real person. And what I'm going to do is give you some insights from 30 years of getting my butt kicked and hopefully some success with trials and motions and all sorts of court appearances throughout this great land of ours. And I'm going to try and condense it to 10 tips, which is sort of it's the best approach. So here we go. And I'm going to be looking off to the side every once in a while for my notes. Um, my first tip would be I think one of the best tips in that you should go to the court that you're due to appear in a week before. So if you have a Wednesday motion, because it's a motion call once a week, go the Wednesday before or even the Wednesday before that and just sit in the courtroom and watch and learn. And it's a fascinating display of our life and people and how courts interact with those that they serve. You'll learn a lot. Spend an hour or two just watching the ebb and flow of how the staff treats people versus attorneys or how cases are conducted. Does the judge show up on time? That was always my biggest thing. Even with judges that were previously attorneys, they show up late. I remember one time this judge showed up 2.5 hours late. And I just happened to be in the hallway when she finally got there, and the courtroom was packed on a motion day. She had freshly done hair and shopping from Kroger's. She had just gone out and done her personal stuff, not caring the world about us. She was one of a couple of judges that got caught doing that during the people's time. So that was satisfying. But you get that all the time. Judges are either trying to get elected again or they're busy handling personal stuff. But if we're 10 minutes late, we can get defaulted, and that's life. So watch how the judge treats the people that they're elected to serve. How does their staff treat you or others? And you can learn a lot just from going the week before. And the key thing, at least with me, and it should be with you, is there's a certain amount of anxiety. After 30 years, I have the same anxiety either the night before, depending on how big a motion, or 10 minutes before I'm on. Once I'm on, I just, something takes over. And for you, that something that takes over would be your knowledge of the system. Don't go in not knowing anything. So these tips, and I think this is one of the most important tips, like go to the court and check it out. You'll learn so much. One thing you should remember is that the staff, the judge's staff, holds a lot of power. Don't disrespect them. First of all, they're hardworking people getting pounded for public, by the public. It's like a retail shopping store. Nobody wants to do retail. Well, those poor people get pounded by all sorts of people that are stressed, just like you, just like litigants. Respect them. It's very rare, and that'll get passed on to the judge if you do that right. And my next tip, which is tip number 2, is sort of the same thing, but there's a lady or gentleman that rules the roost, and that is the bailiff. And it's usually a retired officer, police officer, state police officer. He or she has a gun, and they may not have used it and may never use it, but there's the bailiff controlling the courtroom. Get with he or she and be friendly with her. A lot of times they control who gets to the clerk. It's just a matter of respecting everybody's little fiefdom, but you have to do that. You can't be mad at them because they're in your way. You have to take a certain approach of respect at all times. And that's my tip number 1 and number 2. Number 10 is going to be kind of unusual because it is the opposite of what I just told you, but it's doable. Just look for it. Check out your judge. What's the first impression that you want to make to the first person that you want to impress? He's just a person. He or she is just a person. So going there, dress nicely, but don't look like $1 million when you're trying to say you don't owe $1,000. Look reasonable, respectful. How you dress to a judge, he notices. He or she notices. That's our life. Huge organizations are based upon first impressions. Large advertising slogans. Don't miss a chance to make a first impression. So I have a problem with this. I have a sort of a bad resting face, especially when I know I'm right. I tip off the judge that I'm not happy about something. But you got to smile. Everybody reacts well to a smile. So the first impression you give is also the way you argue your case. And I want you through this, even though I probably am not doing this right now, I want you to keep it simple, stupid. Whenever you talk to the court, keep it simple, stupid. Kiss it to death. Because we're human beings again, and we lose interest these days from 30 seconds to a minute. So you have a point to make it already. And that would be tip number 3. Have a point already. We go into a situation we're not prepared for, meandering and unfocused. If you have a point, bottom line it. And I'll go more into always be closing, ABC, always be closing. So if you can combine KISS and ABC, those are 2 good popular songs. You will do quite well in the law business, whether you're a lawyer. And by the way, lawyers are the worst at keeping it simple, either because they're getting billed, they're able to bill by the word, or just like real people, there's a certain amount of insecurity, especially when you represent a client. Are you doing your best job? The worst feeling in the world is to drive from court and go, oh my goodness, I forgot to make this one point. Well, it's usually not that big of a deal, although it is pre-motion argument. And you're always going to feel like that. Hey, welcome to doing a good job. If you're still thinking about it and you saw where you missed, it's like when you take a test and you don't think you didn't do well and you did. It's just one of those psychic things. Your brain's always working. And if you believe in something, you really want to do well, you'll have that horrible post-motion discussion with yourself where you think the judge thought one thing. I've been in trials where I won and I asked why. And they said, we liked your tie. It just destroyed me. I'd done all that work and they liked my tie. I've lost cases where they've come up to me and said, geez, you were right. I liked you, but I hated your client. There's a point there. You have many factors. Some aren't in your control. So you try to control, just like in life, what you can. And respecting the staff, respecting the judge, showing a good impression is one of the most important ways to win a motion. Is it everything? No, because you got to argue the case. But if it's a matter of inches or words or seconds, control those. This is no different than a football game. It's a matter of inches. But make your point and then move on. I want you to go into any motion. This is sort of tip number 3, part of it. Make your point already will be the title of it. And by the way, it's on my website at collectionstopper.com, meaning the tips that I'm giving you, top 10 tips. Just go to the podcast plus section. But I'm going to tell you the best way to argue a motion. Write down on a small sheet of paper or a note card. Do not write notes. I know you want to have that security blanket, but security blankets don't work in this business. You think they do. Most attorneys have a book of notes. That ain't doing it. And me being a pest, I'll bring that out to the court. If I see a guy arguing from his brief, when I'm up, I'll go, Judge, I'm not going to argue from a book. Anybody could do that. I'm going to argue from my heart. And sometimes, because I'm a dummy and theatrical, I'll rip up whatever notes I have, throw them. And now I've got the judge's attention. And then I will speak from the heart because I know my case. This isn't really a tip, but as I'm saying this, I'm thinking this. Know your case. Know the other guy's case better than he does, which, by the way, is really easy these days because no one pays attention. But know your case. And then you won't need the notes. And people notice if you're not looking down and reading to them, but you're making eye contact. Just like when you meet someone, shake their hand, make eye contact, be friendly. That's really how to win in the law business. But those notes, there should be at the beginning and at the end what you want. So let's say you want to show the judge in a particular motion or a pretrial, hey, they're suing me, but they haven't met their burden of proof, meaning they've just slapped something on paper. And most, especially in debt collection, most companies are looking for a default. 9 out of 10 cases about 9 out of 10 end in default. So the companies that are filing thousands of these complaints don't put any work into it. And so that's where I live, is that in that 1 out of 10. And I ruminate in that area and I point out to the court how they just haven't met their burden of proof. And we go into that at another time, but I want you to have at the very beginning of your note exactly what you want and tell the court right up front, Your Honor, I'm here today to point out they haven't met their burden of proof. Now, I will go into this again, but as far as one tip is concerned, always be closing the next motion or the next. So what do I mean by that? You want to have the judge get a sense of what this case is about from your position. And you know there are emotions or other things coming down the road. Keep talking about the same thing. This is the case where they didn't meet the burden of proof. This is the case where they didn't meet the burden. Just keep saying that. Eventually, and I've seen juries do this, where I'm saying the same thing and I watch a juror and she's speaking the words with me. Well, she may be annoyed, but I got her because she's going back to the jury room telling, well, this is the case about where they didn't meet their burden of proof. It's just a simple human thing. And don't forget for a second, these are human beings. These are human emotions. And you have to look at this as a human experience. It's not the big law show done in 60 minutes, but it is a human experience. Keep that in mind. So your card should say what you want, and it should repeat what you want. If you have some support, Your Honor, they did not bring any proof that I owe this debt. You can see from the complaints, a 2-page complaint with no attachments. Let them deal with that. And then you point out the other side has nothing, and you maybe have done a small brief showing the law or support or an affidavit. And then you conclude on that same note, and there's going to be 4 points. Just look at my tips. Asking for the same thing again. Ask for the thing you started with. Ask for the thing you ended with. Always be closing. Make the judge know that what this case is from your side of things. And that is how you argue the case. Always be closing. Keep it simple, stupid. If you keep repeating the same thing, judges take notes on their file. Sometimes they'll write because they're in a hurry and they want to know, oh, what did I do last time? That's why you're arguing the next motion. When you're in that next motion, he or she is going to look at the file. Oh, yeah, this is the case where they didn't meet their burden of proof. He's not taking sides. It's just you said it so much. Eventually, I've heard judges go, oh, is this the case where they didn't meet their burden of proof? I can sit down and not argue that case anymore. It's done for the other side, and they know it. But you did it by being human and knowing. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Actually, wash, repeat, rinse. Just keep talking about the same thing. If you supply a brief, and this is tip 5. Hope I didn't skip 4, but this is tip 5, how to write a brief, which is, again, keep it simple, stupid. There are no rules against just putting a preliminary statement or synopsis of what and why you are arguing and why you're going to win. So I do it because there's no rules against it. There's no rule saying you should do it. But again, I always operate in those gray areas. Put a quick statement. Why? Again, we operate in a 30 seconds to 1 minute attention span. And then the judge is looking at his shoes. He's looking at the clerk. What's the next case about? Sometimes they talk while you're arguing, and that can be kind of uncomfortable. So to avoid all that, get what you need them to hear before their eyes blur over to them within 30 seconds to a minute. Now, there's a little thing you can do. There's no rule against this. When I send in a brief supporting what I'm about to say, I'll put, I'm giving away a tip. Everybody's going to know I'm doing this now because you're not telling the other side you're doing this because you're not required to. I put pink Post-it notes on the part of the brief that I want the judge to take notice of. It may seem silly and small, but he or she has all this work ahead of them. They want that synopsis. They want to get to the point, and it's pink, so it sticks out. So do that, and I watch it. They'll go straight to it, and as I'm making my point, they're repeating the thing from the pink sticky note. I'm not doing anything inappropriate. You're allowed to tab your briefs, and so I do the part that I want the judge to know about. Otherwise, I'm going to lose the judge because he or she's not going to pay attention. Now, I'm going to tell you something, tip number 6. It sounds like I'm saying bribe the judge. I'm joking. My goodness. If there's someone that follows the rules, it's me, probably too much. But invest in the judge. So what I mean by that is get to know the judge. So either a week out or go online, learn about the judge. You can find, especially in federal court, their previous opinions. Google's fantastic. Chat GPT, I'm still working with that. It's going to be good. But whatever your source of research, find out about the judge. Quick story. I was once in the Court of Appeals, and that's right before the Supreme Court. I haven't made it to the Supreme Court yet. I probably won't. And I knew there were 3 judges. One was going to rule against me. He was very business oriented. And I was arguing a home foreclosure appeal. So I was going to lose the mortgage business judge. I had one judge I knew was going to go my way. And again, it's just like blackjack. You can learn how to count cards. It's not 100%, but you do the work. Learn and invest in your judge. And I found the neutral judge. Most cases in a 3-panel court, or even 9 or 7, there's going to be a neutral that's going to be the deciding vote. If arbitration is usually 3 people, you got to focus on the one that's going to go your way. That's in the middle, like an independent voter. So I found out about this judge, and he was into this really obscure poetry and loved this Gray Wolf poem. And I just found a way to put it into an argument about a house foreclosure about the Gray Wolf. And he locked eyes with me for a second, but I knew I had his ears. And that's some of the things you do. Now, I'm crazy. I'll do whatever it takes for my client, because that client is me most of the time. I've done and been and experienced everything, unfortunately, most of my clients have. So I'm kind of protecting myself. So that's good for my client. But I work that room. I know that judge. I'll learn that every single judge, do whatever it takes. Now, and you should too, know you're a judge. You may find out that judge has something in common with you. He likes frogs. Wear a frog tie. Are you doing anything inappropriate? No. If he or she says, hey, frog tie, you've got him. You've made your first impression. I titled number 7, Invest in the Bailiff. I sort of talked about that, but the bailiff's in charge of that courtroom generally. Be nice. That judge gets most of his information from gatekeepers. Just imagine if you're dating someone, but they want to bring someone along, and I've had this happen, to with them on your first date. That person is who's going to determine, I'm going out on a date with this one person. I spend most of my time with the gatekeeper chaperone that she brought along because I know I got to win her over, not the date. Sounds sort of weird, but again, these are human conditions. And if you recognize and respect them, you'll do a lot better than fighting them. So know that bailiff. That's the gatekeeper of all the information. When you go on the day of your court appearance, you've done your research. You spent a day or a couple of hours previously figuring out the ebb and flow of the court. Very important. Go early. You don't want to be late. Late sucks. If you're just walking in and they're calling your case. But we're going to address that too. Go early because you can watch how the judge is feeling that day. If you're not being represented by an attorney, you're on your own. See how the judge is handling people without an attorney. Learn from mistakes. You're not judging people that you perceive to be making mistakes, but if you've done your work, you can see mistakes. And if you've seen either in your previous court appearances or even that morning because you got there an hour early, cases like your own argued. This is really important. If you hear the judge say that or act receptive to something that is said, either by an attorney or somebody else, argue that. Incorporate it in your motion. Heck, I incorporated a poem about the gray wolf at the Court of Appeals into a home foreclosure case. It's easy for you to hear the judge being very receptive to anybody that talks about somebody not meeting their burden of proof. Part of knowing the judge is he or she's going to have an agenda. She may be pro-business. She may be Republican and you're Democrat, or the opposite. I like all types because if they are of a certain character, I'll learn about that character and I'll be that character. I'm a chameleon, and that's actually a bad thing. I'm less of a real person when one is a chameleon, but chameleon serves me well. I just think even if you've got the most secure, healthy, mentally healthy person, be like me instead for that time that you're in court and be a chameleon. If you hear the judge likes frogs, you love frogs. You're a frog lover, and incorporate it into your debt case, how they are suing you for money that you don't owe them. But if you lose this, your frog aquarium is going to suffer, whatever it takes. And if you can get the court to laugh, you win, or at least you're not going to get burned or hurt as bad. So be there early and learn the courtroom. Again, when arguing emotions, tip number 8, I'm looking at this, I'm like, did I repeat myself? But no. Again, always be closing, wash, rinse, repeat. You're arguing for the next hearing. So you're arguing your motion, but also be thinking about, attorneys, pay attention to this. Always be thinking about the next part of this case. Or, and this is both real people and attorneys, you should remember you're going to be in front of this court again. So don't be a bit of a jerk. But because that may carry with you, especially once you lose the staff, you never get them back. And then the staff, the good, hardworking folks that talk to the judge, it's politics. I'm not good at that. So sometimes I won't talk to anybody, I admit to you, for fear that I'm not good at that. I've gotten better as I've gotten older, and I have the gray hair now. And the gray hair matters. It just, nobody likes gray hair or getting old, but in this business, it matters. And in my case, this is representative of how long I've been hard charging at this job. And I still love it every day. So I want you to keep repeating your point, just like I'm repeating my point. If that's driving you crazy, good, because you're remembering it. When you talk to the court, I'm going to repeat and rinse and repeat again. Give the theory of your motion and of your case. They're usually one and the same. That's why you're being sued or you're defending a motion. And some of the motions are not fun, but they apply either way. One of my favorite movies, very quickly, I hope this isn't meandering, and it is, because I obviously know that, but very quickly, in the movie Hoosiers, he's got a team with only 6 players, and they win the state championships from this farm school for the entire state. They win. Now they're going to Indianapolis to take on this monster task of the national championships in Indianapolis with 50,000 seats as opposed to the couple of hundred in their gym that they play in. And the players are just scared as hell. The coach, played by Gene Hackman, says, everybody grab a tape measure. And he makes them measure the court. And it turns out to be exactly the same size as their podunk court. And that point is so cool. Wherever you go, there you are. If you're good in the state championship at Podunk Farm you're going to be good at this place just because there's a couple 100,000 people watching. It's 81 feet this way and 60 feet that way, wherever you are. So just stick to your point. Make your point. Repeat your point. Those layups work the same way, and it's the same rules wherever you are, whether it's Court of Appeals or a state court. Show respect, make your point, repeat your point, end with your point, ask for what you want. Always ask repeatedly for what you want. It's fun when the other side gets to hear from the judge. Looks like he's got a point. Why doesn't he have a point? Well, you just sold the judge. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back, not in front of the court, because you want to be humble. Okay, here's the final 2 tips. I think I've gone off the rails here, but number 9, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. It sucks. I'm speaking, I guess, mostly to attorneys now, even though I'm not dressed like one. But you are going to lose. Get over it. If you want to take an hour to just cry and yell, and sometimes I'll do that just to say to myself, okay, feel bad about this, now move the hell on. And in my top 10 tips, I make a really good point. Especially if you're a Lions fan. So if you watch a receiver and he's supposed to come down with an easy pass, if you're a Lions fan, you're familiar with this, and he drops it. And afterwards, the camera says, oh, Johnson didn't pick up an easy catch. He would have won the game. The guy's smiling and laughing. The guy the millionaire has dropped the ball. You're pissed. But why is he laughing? Because he doesn't care? Because he's getting paid anyway? No. Once you've made a mistake, hit it and move on. Because that next case you have cannot be plagued by your reticence or fear of the next time you're in front of the court. Oh, am I going to make the same mistake again? So spend an hour beating yourself up and then move the hell on, because just like in football, you'll develop a case of the dropsies. If you're always thinking about the last case and the negativity from that, which, by the way, is overblown just like any anxiety. You really didn't do as bad as you thought you did. Let it go. Let it go. Quick case. Anybody taking the bar? I knew a guy that spent 20 minutes on one question because he couldn't let it go. Of course, he didn't finish the bar. I think he had to take it again. I never talked to him again. But don't hit it and move on. Make your point. Hit it and move on. So when you're arguing, again, we're going back a couple of tips. Hit it and move on. Most attorneys are so insecure about the information as though the judge didn't hear it. They keep going back to it. And one of the worst things is when someone reads from their brief or something the judge already has. He's heard this before, but they are insecure. The judge hasn't read their brief. They may be right about that, or didn't hear him the 6 other times. I go nuts on someone that reads. I'll just make fun of them in a nice way and point out to the judge that, Judge, I'm not reading anything. This is straight from my heart. Who doesn't want to rule for a guy? And juries, that's the best thing. When I do that in front of juries where the guy's got this huge book and I see it on the desk and I'm arguing, before I leave in front of the jury, I'll go, hey, by the way, you notice I didn't talk from any notes? Watch what this guy does. It's kind of ballsy, but you're there to win. It's fun to watch that person approach the podium to the jury now with this book, and it messes them up, because what happens is, and this is an important tip, hey, I've actually stopped meandering. Don't depend on the thing that you use to win your argument. Make sure it's a small card. Don't look down, look up. Eye contact, which is I have a little trouble with because I'm over here, or whatever that is, with my notes. But if Zoom taught us anything, you got to look at the camera. Well, the camera is the judge, right? Especially with this face, I'm being judged. You have to make your point from a small card, not from a book, not from your brief that the judge already has. And you avoid all the bad things as far as arguing by getting to your point with a small card. Now, I talked earlier about the opposite of respect. And this is going to be a little, I'm not getting in trouble for this, but you're going to have judges that don't see things your way. And depending on if you're a big dummy like me that sometimes doesn't let things go and sees things, and I've learned a lot from being a big dummy. And by the way, you don't learn anything from success. You learn tremendously from mistakes. I got 30 years of them, but I do well for my clients. You're going to get in a fight with the judge sometimes, and that's a jousting that is allowed. Just keep the respect. Now, this is the finite point that I want to make. It's point number 9, but it's also about dealing with bullies. And it's going to be a story. Everybody hates my stories. But I, as a young attorney, used to go to court shaking, just generally. But there was this one particular judge on Wednesdays in Oakland County. He loved destroying attorneys. And everybody knew it. And they would all rush up to his courtroom excited because he's going to trash an attorney or do this. And that's what he did. Equal opportunity trasher. Both sides of the V. Defendant, plaintiff, whomever, prosecutor, you don't know what you're doing. Parker, you definitely don't know what you're doing. And just viscerate. Very good surgical. I learned a lot from how he takes people down. But every day I'd be throwing up in the bathroom before my hearing. And I thought, this is not serving me, but most importantly, my client well. So I'm in the midst of getting my ass kicked. And I've made good points. I know I'm right on the law, but no, he's crushing me. And I actually heard people giggle. Personal note, I perspire a lot, especially under stress, and it was not good. There was actually a pool of water on the floor. I swear I'd been sitting there waiting my turn, and oh goodness. So he's crushing me. And I thought, how am I going to get out of this? And something went off in my head. I've been bullied before. I said, dude, this is just a bully. He has crossed the line. And that's the point I want to make here. You owe judges a tremendous amount of respect. You may not like them. They're a certain appointee from a certain president, but it's not easy being a judge. It's not easy getting to be a judge, despite what you hear, and keeping that job and making tough decisions, regardless of how you got there, is a hard job. Every judge thinks they're underpaid. I mean, they do. And maybe I believe they have to make life affirming or destroying decisions. So I respect a judge, but there are those judges that will go beyond the bounds of the decorum and protocols. And I remember in the Army, they gave us permission. If you are in the battlefield and you don't agree with an order, you can go against it. Now, I was in those positions, but I never did that because I knew politically I'd get crushed anyway. But they say you can do that. You can ignore the general's order. And so I always took that into court, going, I'll just let the guy beat up on me. But this killing of me in my case went beyond what I considered the rules and protocol. And I think the judge knew it. And he just started getting sort of an ego about it. And I just happened to be the guy that day that he was destroying, but he was going beyond the case. Mr. Parker, that haircut, Mr. Ba. It's just personal. And I thought to myself, hey, wait a minute, man. This is just a bully. How do you handle bullies? You bully a bully. And I took a chance. I came back. I just went after him. And I was either going to jail. And by the way, after that time, I always kept more money than I normally keep in my pocket on Wednesdays or motion day. I knew one day I'd end up being thrown in jail. It hasn't happened yet, and Zoom has kind of saved me. But he looked at me. On a dime, he turned to the other person and started destroying them. It was that quick. And I had succeeded in using my brain and figuring out that number one, people are human beings. He was just bullying me. So I bullied him back, just like on a playground. That's how you handle bullies. You just got to do it the right way. And you don't do it unless they cross over obvious bounds and rules and respect that you have to hold. I hold the court. My ex-wife was very political, and I knew most of the stuff that was going on in courtrooms from political side and how people really felt. And I still respected the court. I respect the heck out of the court because it's hard from the staff member to the judge. It's a hard job. But once they cross that line, then they're not being judged like they're being a regular person. And if that regular person is bullying you, I bullied back. It was so cool the way he's actually the father of a good friend of mine's wife. And I later learned that he did that just to test the mettle of the attorneys in front of him. He was testing my mettle, and he liked that I did that. He was bored. That's all it was. He was just bored as a judge, and he was smart. He was on top of his game. He probably could have gone to other things. He just wanted someone to fight. And when I did that, he was done. He got it. Okay, Parker's good. And I did well in his court thereafter, which goes back to one of my tips. You're always fighting the next hearing or the next motion or selling your case. It's true. And you're also selling yourself the next time. I've done some great things where I've just fell on my sword and it's not good. But the next time I'm in that courtroom, the judge will go, hey, Mr. Parker, which when the judge calls you over and they remember you, that's good for your client. And again, the gray hair really helps. So at an utmost, I want you to take from this, respect the court, respect her staff, respect. These tips are designed for you to do that respect, but also invest in the court, invest in your case. Keep it simple, stupid. ABC, always be closing. This case is this. This case is this. This case is this. And in conclusion, Your Honor, I'd like to say this case is this. They may get sick of that, but again, like I said, sometimes they write on the file and they remember you. You want to be remembered for the right reasons. It takes away the anxiety of any situation, even death. If you can get enough knowledge about the unknown, and that's what it is, the unknown. I still get the thing in my stomach. I've had an attorney who I knew was terrific in front of a jury, just great. I said, why don't you do it anymore? He goes, I can't stand the night before. And I know that feeling. But he's so good. He's much better than me in front of a jury, at least. Maybe, I don't know. I don't mean to put myself down. But that pit in the stomach, it robs you. And if you're really invested in the case, which I, unfortunately, sometimes, because these clients of mine are me, and I want to win, I sometimes can be a bit much, but that night before is a pain in the ass. You can take that away by invest in the judge, invest in your case. All these notes you have, get them down to a card. It is so fruitful if you make your point, hit it, and move on. They will hear you more if you do it in 5 minutes than if you do it in 15. You've lost them if you're going beyond boom, 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 boom. Just wash, repeat, and rinse. All right. Enough going on and on about what a great guy I am, but I hope this helps you. I'm supposed to say subscribe, and you can go to my website, collectionstopper.com. As this thing goes on and I'm doing more recordings, they'll be at collectionstopper.com in a section called Podcast Plus. And I thank you for listening and putting up with me. And again, you can always email me if I didn't touch upon something you wanted to and you want some reassurance. I'm not your attorney. I'm giving you my experience. So I'm not representing you, of course. But I am representing 30 years of things that have worked for me. And again, I've made a lot of mistakes. But you don't learn from mistakes. You learn, you do learn. I just made a mistake. You learn from mistakes. You don't learn from successes. I don't remember any success, and I've had some big ones where I'm like, hey, yeah, what I learned there, I just go, okay, now I got to find another case to replace that. I'm always thinking ahead, and that's on me. But you do learn from your mistakes. So learn from my mistakes so that you don't make those mistakes and you can win your case. So I promised you 30 years of experience in 30 minutes. Let me take a look. It's 41 minutes. Sorry about that, but just they'll probably edit it. But I hope they don't edit my point, which is ABC, always be closing. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Make your point, hit it, and move on. And respect the people you want to rule your way. Dig it? Okay. Thank you.